but yeah, just, I love the simplicity of it. Every decision that I make now, along with my wife, we look at each other and ask ourselves, is this simplifying or complicating our lives? And St. Augustine makes it pretty easy to simplify things.
I love how you simplify things. Again, I keep going back to knowing that you and I have similar backgrounds, similar levels of success in real estate. But when I had that lunch with you 3, 4, 5 years ago, whenever it was, I really looked at somebody who was making intentional decisions different than I was in regards to friends, family, some of those things. And it really just kind of unlocked this passion and this awakening for me that I could make those type of decisions. And I really want to share some of the things that you talked about in your book that I think are simple, not complicated, that anybody can do. You wrote in your book, and I remembered I highlighted this in 2017 or 2018 when you gave it to me, that you make an intentional date night with your wife. I think it was every Tuesday in the book, you know? You also talked about a handwritten friendship letter, right? These are things that you talked about in the book, how they have been life changers for you. And anybody can do those things, right? Even those, you and I, who both have kids, I do that now too. So can you talk about maybe some of these things that are not complicated that anybody listening to this call could do to really improve their lives?
Absolutely. And thank you for bringing them up. So yeah, so in the book, I talk about the 5 F's and I break it down, and then I'm a very tangible guy. I think, most real estate people are. That's why we're in real estate, is because we like the tangibility of it, the touchy, the feel. So I give a tangible tool in each of the chapters of the book around the 5 F's that Greg was mentioning. So to start, I think, again, going back to that self-love and being able to forgive yourself, because we all screw up on a daily basis. And God knows I screwed up more than most when I was a child, and really went through a pretty dark place. But I started taking time for myself. And so a personal retreat, to Greg's point, I think under the umbrella of faith, or the chapter in faith. And when I say a personal retreat, again, let's put religion and dogma aside, and let's keep it really simple. So if you don't have a lot of disposable income right now, anyone that's listening to this, I am 100%, 110% sure can afford 2 nights at an Airbnb around the corner from where you live. And so let me just sort of clarify that. So this retreat that you're going to give yourself, personal retreat, let's just call it, is something that I do on an annual basis, and it's a game changer. It's put your phone away, put your computer away, give your spouse a kiss. If you're single, then you don't need to kiss anyone goodbye. And you can explain to your children why you're going where you're going, no matter what age they are, and go and be quiet for 48 hours. And this sounds so simple. You don't need to spend a lot of money on it. With Airbnb, you could do it for a couple $100. And you don't need to get on a plane. You can just go around the corner. You just need to be by yourself, and you need to be away from technology, and you need to be away from media, and you just need to be with yourself. And you will be floored at what comes out of it. The beginning, even setting it up, is going to be very uncomfortable, and it'll probably give you some anxiety if you're not familiar with this practice. But I will put my hand on a Bible. I will sell the ranch that you will grow from it, and will crave it the more that you do it. It becomes like this healthy addiction where you need the space. So that would be the first simple tool. And I don't care what budget you're on, you can do it, and you deserve it. And it's an act of self-love. And this isn't to be narcissistic. It's to make you the best husband, wife, friend, human spirit that you can be. So that's number one.
So that sounds scary as hell, man.
Well, I'm happy you just said that. I'm going to hold you accountable.
All right. I like it. So
Yeah.
you're going by yourself.
Yeah. There's a yoga. I love yoga. So there's a little hillbilly redneck. I shouldn't use the word wreck. A really rundown little simple place in the woods in the Ocala National Forest, state forest that I go to in Central Florida. Very simple, vegetarian meal, no thrills, cost a couple $100. And to me, it's not about the money or the cost of it. It's the space there. There's some sacred grounds in this place that I go to. I'll send you a link to it, Greg. You should go check it out.
All right, man.
You don't even need to get on a plane, which a lot of us aren't right now during COVID. And it's a beautiful led, in my opinion, to get started. It helps to have a teacher or some type of led retreat, because otherwise you can start getting in your thoughts and getting in your way, and it can backfire on you. So I'm happy to share that, that resource with the listeners. Daily meditation, that's free. I talk about an app in there with which, Greg, I know you said that I think that you might have tried.
Yep.
It's called Simply Being. You can download it on your smartphone. It's a led meditation. When it comes to family, that one-on-one time, or what I call an overnight with my children. So Greg mentioned I have a weekly date night with my wife, which is a rule, and we try not to miss at any cost. We do a monthly overnight. Again, doesn't need to be fancy, doesn't need to spend, don't need to spend a bunch of time and money on it. Just, it's quality time. It's the difference between spending time with your loved ones and spending quality time with your loved ones, and prioritizing that. And then now that my children, I've been doing it with my children since they were infants. Even when my wife was nursing, I would pack up milk, which I was a nervous wreck doing it when they were infants, but I would take my, 2-month-old an hour down the beach to a place called Hammock Dunes and just figure out how to take care of them and make sure that I could bring them home 24 hours later. Now they're 7 and 8, and I do these little overnights with them, and they crave it, and they ask me, and we have fun with it, and we set it up together, and I get the kids involved in that. Anyone can do that. If you're a parent, you can do it. If you're not a parent, if you are a parent, first of all, and you have multiple children, then pick your favorite child and take them first. You're supposed to laugh there, guys.
There you go.
If you're not a parent, you can do this with, any loved one. It doesn't matter if you're a parent or not. Next one is friends. I talk about the rule of 5. That's a Jim Rohn, who's one of my old mentors who's passed on. The rule of 5, just to, move through it fairly quickly because of time. What Jim Rohn says is that you will become the sum average of the 5 people that you invest your time with. So invest it very wisely. And so when I'm giving a talk, or I'm running a retreat, or we're putting on an event, I will actually ask all of the attendees, or the people, to take 5 minutes, get a pen and paper, write down the 5 people that you're spending the most time with, and then take a long, hard look at that list of names and ask yourself, are these 5 people adding value to my life? Are they supporting me? Are they loving? Are they forgiving? Or is one of them maybe, or a couple of them, a little bit draining, maybe a little bit negative? And look, nobody's perfect. Everyone has bad days. But I'm going to go out on a limb and venture to say that most of the listeners will find 1 or 2 people on that list of 5 that should not be on that list. And that's where that comes back to self-love, and that comes back to creating healthy boundaries. And I think you should do this with family members. I think you should do it with your friends. It's been a game changer for me. It's all about, that, not to be cliche, but the quality versus quantity, right? I have some small group of really, really close friends that I can call and ask of anything, and they will drop a hat and be there for me. So that little rule is really simple. Anyone can do it. It takes 5 minutes to do. The creating boundaries doesn't take 5 minutes to do. It's going to create some anxiety for you, but it's the best thing that you can do for yourself, and it's also the best thing that you can do for your loved ones. Greg mentioned writing a letter. The power of a handwritten letter it's a forgotten art. Our kids don't even learn handwriting in school anymore, at least mine are in Montessori, so I think they do some of that, but in traditional schooling, they don't teach handwriting anymore. The power of a handwritten, there's a huge difference between opening up a handwritten letter and getting a text message or a voicemail or a typed letter. And I give the example of the impact that had on one of my best friends who lives 9,000 miles away in Australia. I wrote him a letter, sort of forgot about it. I just wrote him a letter and told him how I felt. I was just said, hey, I thank you so much for our friendship. You always make me laugh. You make me a better man. We have lots of jokes. Australians are pretty candid with their jokes and like to swear a lot. So there was a couple of swears in the letter that I wrote him, but really it was a love letter, a friendship letter. And I wrote it, put it in the mail, snail mail to Australia. It probably took 3 weeks to get there. He calls me like a month later. And I could hear his voice was trembling. He left me a voicemail. Unfortunately, I didn't pick up the phone, but he said he could not believe the fact that I took 20 minutes out of my life to write him a letter. He said it was a game changer. And in fact, on that message, he asked me if I minded if he framed that letter and put it on his desk in his office to remind him of what matters most in our friendship. And I was a little bit taken back by that, honestly, but it was a great, great lesson for me in the simplicity and the power of a handwritten letter. And you can do that with friends. Greg mentioned his mom earlier. You can do it for your parents if they're elderly, because God knows my parents are 80 years old now, so time is fleeting with them. And you can do it with your young children. I wrote letters to my children when they were 2 and 3 and 4 months old that obviously they couldn't understand it at that time, but it's something that I look forward to sitting with them when they're older, or just giving it to them and letting them read it at their leisure later on in life. Next is fitness. We talked about surfing. That's something that all three of us have in common. My belief, and I talk about it in depth in the book, is fitness is critical. And when I say fitness, I'm talking about moving your body on a daily basis. A lot of people struggle with that. There's all kinds of statistics and science that shows that in North America in particular, the obesity levels are through the roof. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we have such a problem with COVID. A lot of the obesity was a pre-existing condition to that. So without going into that, when it comes down to fitness, find something that's fun. For me, I work out every day in the ocean. It's not a stretch. I actually crave it. I look forward to it. And it's because there's a fun factor for me. I mean, who doesn't like going in the ocean, right? So that's the exercise for fitness, or the tool to give. And then finance, Greg is the guru there on that. I happen to use a tool called real estate, which the listeners probably know about because your JWB clients are fans of Greg's. A phenomenal tool. And to break that down in its simplicity, real estate, if you set it up right, is a tool that gets your and other people's money working for you versus you working for your money. And the educational system in America does not teach that. It teaches the complete industrial, outdated, old way of, go to a good school, get a good job, climb the ladder, and then punch that clock, and you will get your hourly wage, and good luck with retiring. So you got to flip that on its head. That's not sustainable. And the tool that I talk about in finance is using real estate.
I'll just jump in there for a second, because, you and I and Pablo, all of us love real estate as that tool to help us. But I could really connect with you when you talked about why you love real estate, not just because what it can do financially, but it wasn't, correct me if I'm wrong, but it wasn't because you love the act of taking a property and then redesigning it and, creating this different structure, as much as real estate for you is a tool to help you invest more time in the 5Fs, right?
I've done a few thousand rehabs, and we're building houses now. Construction's a pain in the ass, guys. I'm not gonna lie to you. And Greg hit the nail on the head. I do it because of the freedom of time.